have a good day to all of us. By the way, I am Catherine Borado Tampus, BS Ed 3 English. And our topic is all about the environmental ethics, and my assigned topic is all about Paul Taylor and biocentrism. To further with and as a review, what is environmental ethics? So, environmental ethics is an established field of practical philosophy which reconstruct the essential types of argumentations that can be made for protecting natural entities and the sustainable use of natural resources. So, environmental ethics also stated that it is made for protecting the natural resources. So, it is a branch of ethics that studies the relationship between human beings and environment, and how humans are part of the society as well as other living creatures. So, which include plants and animals. Environmental ethics also provides moral grounds for social policies, aim and degradation. That is why it can be viewed that environmental ethics involves ecological consciousness amongst us. So, let's go on to Paul Taylor. So, Paul Taylor extends moral considerations from the sphere of sentience and puts forward an argument for the moral protection of all beings that be considered as theological centers of life. Whether a being is conscious or sentient is not the sole determinant of its moral considered ability. So, for Taylor, a biocentric outlook protects the rights of all living organisms, including plants and microorganisms, to seek out their good and well-being. So, who is Taylor? So, Taylor is an American philosopher best known for his works in the field of environmental ethics. So, Taylor is considered as Taylor is a philosopher that he is the best known for his work about the field of environmental ethics. So, biocentric, for Taylor's viewpoint of biocentric, it is a biocentric egalitarianism put forth the view that all living things have equal worth as theological centers of life. In other words, every living thing has its own biological interest, and with that, its own end lost. All other capacities, such as sentience or rationality, are not counted as holders of relevant value. And respect for nature, Taylor viewpoint supported a biocentric viewpoint that in environmental ethics that biocentrism in general priorities individuals in natures including humans but does not assign humans higher priority. So, as theological center of life, an organism exists for the sake furthering its existence by undergoing changes and processes that improve its well-being. So, in Taylor's viewpoint, in teleological centers of life, organisms exist for their seeking of their existence by undergoing changes and processes that improve its well-being. In other words, all organisms move towards fulfilling their own ends insofar as plants need water and sun for nourishment. So, this is the viewpoint of Paul Taylor that theological center of life of organisms exist for the sake of furthering their existence. For example, the plants needs water and sun for nourishments. For their existence, in order the plants will grow, they need sun and water. Willfully deny them their things would constitute a violation of their rights as theological centers of life. So, Taylor stated that human beings, much like their plant counterparts, are non-privileged members of Earth's community of life. Humans, like other organisms and contingents, biological beings that cannot absolutely guarantee their survival. So, Taylor's viewpoint also is humans like other organisms. So, he stated that humans is dependent on others. They are like organisms because in biological beings that cannot absolutely guarantee their survival. So, humans and other organisms stated by Taylor that they are contingent to each other. They have their similarities. Humans share a bond of kinship with other living organisms because it is same natural processes that brought all of us to life. So Taylor stated also that humans share a bond of kinship. For example, human needs to plant trees, vegetables, and fruits. So that is what we call a band of kinship. Why? Because there is a bond of kinship with a human between a nature. So there is a connection between human and nature for the breath as of life because living organisms like fruits give products or give food to eat into the human, and that is what we call human living organisms brought all of us to life to human. So there is a band of kinship for Taylor's viewpoint. In fact, human beings are relatively newcomers to the earth. The planet has been teeming with life way before humans came into the scene, and yet we act like we are the sole purpose and end of natural evolutionary processes. So, in the manner of speaking, humans act like they own the place, even if a lot of others beings have been residing and securing their place in a natural environment millions of years before human existed. So, Taylor stated also that human are owned this place. Human have owned this place and residing and securing the place in the natural environment in years before. So, it may be argued that we are the most needy and capricious of all living organisms on earth. So, there is an argue that who must be the higher priority, the living or the human or the natural living organism. In other words, biocentrism at the very least questions the common view that human beings are the highest or the most important members of the environment. So, it exposes that the view that all living organisms have equal rights from an ethical perspective. Hence, one can say that even if crushing the roots of trees with bulldozers that not hurt the trees, it does harm them because it is their interest to further their existence. So, in fact, hence we can say that crushing of the roots of the trees. So, in our situation right now, many people are cutting of trees. They uses high-tech gadgets to destroy our natures. For example, mini bulldozers. So, we can say that trees are not being hurt because they are natural. They are plants. So, in fact, in Taylor's viewpoint, trees might feel harm or natural resources must feel harm, and for him it has their interest to further their existence. It must have their interest to grow up more, to live more, and to further their existence. So, even if plants do not have their preference, interest, conscious wants or desires, even if the plants do not have their critical thinking, intrinsic thinking, don't have their wants and desires like other humans, their possessions of welfare interest includes them in the spheres of moral considerability. So, their positions of welfare, they have their positions. They have their positions even if plants don't have their desires and conscious. the intrinsic the in- intrinsic or their imaginations, their knowledge, or their their capacity to think, but they have the plants have the positions of welfare. The good welfare of interest includes the spheres of moral considerability. So plants also have moral considerability of our environment. So to argue, therefore, the humans are superior species is considered as an unjustified bias from the perspective of biocentrism. As the name suggests, all that has life should be treated with impartial respect. So, in this viewpoint, all that has life should be treated with impartial respect. So, to say that humans have capacities that are more valuable than those of other beings because humans have a capacity to have reasoning, critical thinking, and have higher capacity than others. So, those of other beings, such as their capacity for algebra, as for unfairly judged the value of capacities possessed by other beings. What would be the algebra for the dog or a tree? So, there is an argumentation. So, what would be the algebra for the dog or a tree? So, their capacities are suited for their purposes for protecting their own welfare as such as beings. So, they don't have their algebra. Their only capacities suited for their purposes and protecting their own welfare and such as these beings, such as beings as a dog, being as a tree. So that's only their capacities. So to say that we are the better species than them is to make the mistakes of distinguishing what its species needs to be able to survive. Tree climbing is more to a monkey than the capacity to solve math problems. So this noted that human beings have the higher capacities than others. So we are human beings have the higher capacities. We have our algebra. We have our intrinsic capacities. So unlike Taylor's egalitarian outlook, Robin Atfield proposes a revision of biocentrism by arguing for all the hierarchical view which holds that even all beings that have a good of their own possess inherent value, some beings, namely persons, have greater intrinsic value. Hence, for Atfield, although all living organisms have inherent value, some organisms may be considered as having more inherent more than others. So, in Taylor's egalitarian outlook, it stated that all living things have equal worth as theological centers of life. In other words, every living things has its own biological interest. So, every living things have its own biological interest on what its own its telos. So, such as the sentience of rationality and holders of relevant value. So, in this possesses that inherent value, some beings, namely persons, have greater intrinsic value. So, in this situation, in this viewpoint, persons or human beings have the higher capacity of greater intrinsic value. So, to sum up with, and to leave a quote before I leave this report. So, the care of the earth is our most ancient and most worthy, and after all, our most pleasing responsibility. To cherish what remains of it and to foster its renewal is our only hope. By Wendell Berry. So, that's all of my report. Thank you and God bless everyone.